do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. This sonnet is probably familiar to you in its first line. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. But you might not know much about the woman who wrote it. The woman who wrote it is named Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I think probably sometimes people think that this must be one of Shakespeare's sonnets. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. Sounds a bit like, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? It even rhymes with it. But this is not written by Shakespeare in the early 1600s. It's written by Elizabeth Barrett Browning in the mid-1800s. Elizabeth Barrett Browning is someone I talk about in my new book, partly because she is one of the most important English poets, not just for Victorian poetry of her age, but also for carrying forward this love of and this dedication to the early church fathers and their poetic tradition. I'll tell you a little bit about her story. So she's born in 1806, 1 year before Longfellow, another of my favorite poets. And she grows up with a pretty domineering father. Her mother had died at a young age. And she was never in very good health. She was given, however, an incredible opportunity to study in her teenage years with a man named Hugh Stuart Boyd. Now, Hugh Stuart Boyd was a classics scholar who was particularly interested in early Christian poetry, and within early Christian poetry, he was especially interested in the poetry of St. Gregory Nazianzus. And so Boyd translated some of the earliest sort of formal translations of Gregory's poetry into English, into sort of rhyming Victorian English, and kind of got the English reading public, as much as they ever got into reading Gregory, he's the one that got them into it. And I think even more importantly, he got Elizabeth Barrett Browning to be interested in Gregory. And in the 1840s, due to his tutelage, Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote an essay, which kind of turned into a short book called Some Account of the Greek Christian Poets, where she talks about, the different early Christian poets, and some of them she's not too enthusiastic about, but Gregory in particular, she's very enthusiastic about. In fact, she has this wonderful translation of a Gregory poem that she says it's rather a cry than a song. Here it is. Where are my winged words, dissolved in air? Where is my flower of youth, all withered? Where my glory vanished? Where the strength I knew from comely limbs, disease hath changed it too, and bent them. Where the riches and the lands, God hath them. Yea, and sinners' snatching hands, I have grudged the rest. Where is my father, mother, and where my blessed sister, my sweet brother? Gone to the grave. There did remain for me alone my fatherland, till destiny, malignly stirring a black tempest, drove my foot from that last rest. And now I rove estranged and desolate on a foreign shore. I read at the beginning of this video her most famous sonnet, and now we have her treatment of Gregory's sort of lament in old age. Elizabeth Barrett Browning was able to bring to Gregory's poetry the same emotional impact, the same, I think, introspective and serious contemplation of life and death to Gregory's poetry as well. Gregory's translations are not the most important things she wrote. Probably her sonnets are. The sonnets are called Sonnets from the Portuguese, which she published basically about her courtship with the poet Robert Browning, who she married in the 1840s. Elizabeth Barrett Browning was an interesting figure in that she has this very classical side where she's interested in translating Greek, where she's interested in early church poetry. But she also was very interested in the politics of her day. She was interested in especially Italian politics. She and Robert Browning lived for a while in Italy. I think she died in Italy. And so Elizabeth Barrett Browning is someone I want you to know, and I'm glad we got to look at a couple of her poems today. She's a poet who shows that you can write some of the most important poetry published in the Victorian era, lines like, "How do I love thee, let me count the ways," that come into our common conception of poetic language just in the English language in general, but also someone who is very interested in learning from the early Christian poets. So it's fun to introduce you to Elizabeth Barrett Browning today. I hope you pick up Sonnets from the Portuguese at the very least, and if you can find some account of the Greek Christian poets, that's worth picking up as well. Both are available on the public domain. Because it's Valentine's Day, I'll leave you with another poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning that I think is particularly interesting and striking. I thought once how Theocritus had sung of the sweet years, the dear and wished-for years, who each one in a gracious hand appears, to bear a gift for mortals, old or young. And as I mused it in his antique tongue, I saw in gradual vision through my tears the sweet sad years, the melancholy years, those of my own life, who by turns had flung a shadow across me. Straightway I was aware, so weeping, how a mystic shape did move behind me, and drew me backward by the hair. And a voice said in mastery while I strove, "Guess now who holds thee?" "Death," I said. But there the silver answer rang, "Not death, but love."